This is Campus News, reporting the top stories from colleges and universities.
Next on Campus News.
Minnesota schools are now required to have menstrual products in bathrooms. How students and staff are reacting to the changes.
For some at area colleges, tuition will be free this fall. Find out where the money is coming from.
College can be a stressful time for many. Hear how some local students are spending their free time.
Softball season is in full swing. Find out what has Dragon softball players swinging for the fences this season. Good morning and welcome to Campus News. I'm Chris Hovden.
And I'm Alex Sapp. This semester, students might notice something different in campus bathrooms. Free menstrual health products are now available in all Minnesota schools.
Reporter Caitlin Haugrud tells us how this new initiative is impacting students on campus.
Under a new statewide law, all schools across Minnesota are now required to provide free menstrual products in all bathrooms, men's, women's, and gender neutrals. For transgender students like Elle Moore, this change makes accessing menstrual products easier.
I've used the products before, and if they were only in the women's room, I wouldn't have.
For students who are low on funds, menstrual products can be expensive. If they cannot afford them, they may have to improvise.
I remember a period of time before this initiative where I was kind of really low on funds and I was using toilet paper.
The availability of these products aims to ensure that students can focus on their studies without unnecessary worries.
It's not just a financial burden for students. It is am I okay? Am I going to get through this class? So it's more creating a peace of mind than anything else.
Though this initiative is just one of many steps MSUM has taken to be an inclusive space, not everyone is understanding.
My partner had a situation where he went to the men's bathroom and a non-trans guy came in, I'm just assuming, came in and saw tampons. He's like, "Why are there tampons in the men's restroom?" and kicked a stall.
The topic may be taboo for some, but for others, it just means that it's time to have a more open conversation.
If that means that makes men uncomfortable in the restroom, then it's time to talk a little bit more about what that means for folks.
As the conversation around menstrual health continues, MSUM and other schools are working to give students peace of mind that their needs are being met. With photographer Alex Sapp, Caitlin Haugrud, Campus News.
Funding for these products is currently being provided by the state of Minnesota, with MSUM being allocated over $31,000 for 2024. Student loan debt for college dropouts has exploded by nearly $1 billion. That's compared to college graduates who owe $3.2 billion less than they borrowed in the same time frame. The Higher Education Advisory Group studied the numbers from 2013 to 2019. The Education Data Initiative shows the average student's loan debt in 2023 is just over $37,000. In Minnesota, the average debt is just below $34,000.
Coming up with money for tuition is often a top concern for many college students. And in Moorhead, the local universities are trying to make it easier for some.
I met with staff from each university and found out how they are making it possible.
At MSUM this fall, tuition will be free for some students.
It would make a huge difference on what I would pursue and the different fees that come with that. You know, having that bit covered, especially if your family doesn't make that much money, I think it would be quite awesome.
The series of tuition incentives started with Minnesota's North Star Promise. Students whose family's adjusted gross income is below $80,000 are eligible.
The cost of higher education is a big barrier for many people. And so this was kind of a way that we were looking at investing in Minnesota's future and Minnesota's students.
If grants, scholarships, and other funds don't cover their entire tuition, the North Star Promise will cover the rest.
There was a lot of support from like the governor's office and the legislature to do something for students with last year's budget bill. And so this was kind of the program that was developed to help break down those financial barriers.
To fight the new competition, NDSU and Concordia also rolled out similar incentives. These programs aim to do the same thing, but one specific thing makes the North Star Promise stand out.
The fact that our dollars are supported by the state make it a much more sustainable program. Those institutions that you mentioned, others that might be doing this, are likely funding it with their own internal dollars, and it might not have the longevity that the North Star Promise has.
Still, The colleges don't see it so much as a competition.
Of course, as you know, there are many schools in our area. We live in an incredible place where we have a four-year public right across the street in North Dakota. We also have MSUM, which is right across the street from Concordia. And so having that opportunity for students to thrive in this environment is great because it really allows a student to find that place that they're looking for.
The aim of this program and all financial aid programs is to make college an option for anyone who is looking into it. Chris Hovden, Campus News.
The program will begin in the 2024-2025 school year. MSUM expects anywhere from 10 to 25% of their students to use it. Harvard's top donor has cut off donations to his alma mater with some harsh criticism. Billionaire Ken Griffin says elite institutions, including Harvard, create, quote, whiny snowflakes instead of just educating them. He says he would like to resume his donations, but is concerned that Harvard grads will continue to be lost in what he calls a DEI agenda that seems to have no real endgame. Over his lifetime, Griffin has donated around $500 million to the college. Griffin is one of many alumni who have pulled donations in recent months.
Harvard University is also undergoing an investigation over the handling of alleged discrimination on campus. The Department of Ed made the announcement on Tuesday. The investigation comes after a federal civil rights complaint that was filed last month against the university on behalf of Muslim and Palestinian students. More than a dozen students filed the complaint, alleging the school failed to protect them from harassment and intimidation. It adds another layer of scrutiny against the university over its handling of rising tensions on its campus after the start of the Israel-Hamas war. The Department of Education is also investigating other universities over alleged incidents of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on campus. The University of California at Berkeley is asking for a discrimination lawsuit to be thrown out. In November, the Jewish Americans for Fairness in Education sued the college, claiming it had turned into a hotbed of anti-Semitism. According to the lawsuit, they say Berkeley failed to protect its Jewish population, noting that some students received hate emails, and while others were afraid to go to class. The university claims that the plaintiffs lack standing. A court date has been set for March 28th to hear the complaint to dismiss.
NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal is teaming up with the CEO of OpenAI to back a private community college. Formerly known as MTI College, the school has been rebranded to Campus. With both online and in-person courses, Campus aims to provide cheaper education for students. Campus says students will take classes from top professors from the universities across the country. The tuition for some programs starts at just over $7,000 per academic year. Others backing the program include the co-founder of Discord, Rethink Education, and Bloomberg Ventures.
For many college students, filling out the FAFSA is crucial for making college affordable. However, some recent changes may delay students finding out how much aid they could receive. The FAFSA, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, determines what sort of financial aid students can receive. In 2023, the Department of Education launched an updated version of the FAFSA, with changes designed to reflect inflation and to make it easier to complete. Typically, the application would open October 1st, but the launch of the new form didn't happen until December. MSUM Director of Financial Aid, Melissa Dingman, says that schools are usually able to award money in late January, but now don't anticipate being able to do so until March, causing delays for incoming students.
We're working with admissions to make sure that everybody kind of knows what's happening, and that admissions counselors can reach out to those new students and just let them know, please be patient, we're working on this.
Dingman says the MSUM Financial Aid Office has seen a 25% increase in visits from students with questions about the new form this year.
After trying to overcome a series of challenges, a historic program at MSUM will be seeing some changes. The honors program is looking for ways to combat low enrollment following COVID. Some of the ideas proposed are new scholarships, more cooperation with all academic departments, and adjusted honors curriculum. Program Director Dr. Richard Lottie says he hopes the changes he can make the program more accessible for all students.
So hopefully overall it would be more flexible and more student-centered, a little bit more option.
Dr. Lottie says the program currently has about 30 active students. Universities in Fargo-Moorhead are campaigning for students to become more involved with clubs and organizations on campus, helping groups recruit new members through involvement expos and mingles.
Nate Cohen spoke with organization representatives to find out how these events get students involved.
These MSUM students are selling their favorite pastimes and hobbies with one goal in mind: a growth in student participation in clubs and organizations.
I think this is a really safe place for students to be able to walk around and see all these different organizations and just get a little snippet of it.
Across the river at NDSU, the push for student involvement has grown from one event to an entire week dedicated to the cause.
Student Involvement Week, this is a new thing that we're doing where instead of just one single day, we're spreading it out over weeks here. And so the point is to try and get students more involved on campus and interacting with students, and this is kind of a bit easier because you're catching people on their way to lunches, on their way to classes, on their way to get coffee.
Members of TBD Improv Comedy say these events are critical to helping make new students on campus aware of their group.
I think it's just about getting the word out there, getting the name of TBD a bit more familiar with people on campus.
Groups range from agriculture to swing dance, and a whole lot in between. Certain organization leaders even say they'll accept anybody willing to give their group a chance, regardless of their enrollment status.
So we thankfully have the option to let students from other NDSU or Concordia come as well, or people that aren't students at all.
Many organization leaders are confident those who will give their group a chance will find fun in trying something new.
There's really no experience needed at all, so I think we have a pretty good grasp of getting people in, just getting them to try it. That's the biggest thing, is just open mind, try it. You're gonna have fun.
With photographers Chris Hovden and Alex Sapp, Nate Cohn, Campus News.
Student organizers say that while some groups draw more interest than others, most students on campus found themselves involved with one or more student organizations. High school students will no longer be needing their pencils when taking the SAT. The test created to gauge college readiness will be going digital beginning this year. That's not the only change. The test will also be shorter, down from 3 hours to 2, and students can use calculators. The College Board, which administers the SAT, says the new test will be easier to take, easier to give, and more relevant.
Over the years, billions of dollars have gone into funding for cancer research. Everything from early detection to quality treatment can help lead a patient into remission. Reporter Drew Berg recently met with an NDSU student who's making a difference in the fight against cancer.
To most, this may seem like a regular college laboratory, but to one North Dakota State University student, it's been her home of over 4 years of cancer detection research. Mehek Sadiq is a graduate student in NDSU's Biomedical Engineering program, where she has spent much of her time studying how nanosensors can detect certain cancers earlier than ever before.
When the same sides of magnets face each other and they repel each other. So this is the same case in case of our sensor.
This allows for scientists to detect cancer even before the patient shows symptoms. Sadiq's personal experience with cancer medicine started as a child, where she was surrounded by a family of medical professionals.
So patients came to my parents, but they were in their 3rd stage of cancer. Until then, they didn't have any symptoms, so cancer wasn't detected. So I always wanted to do something that would help the patients diagnose cancer at the early stages when it can be cured. And that motivated me to come into this area of research.
Sadiq has won prizes at the North Dakota Biomedical Engineering Symposium and the North Dakota Innovation Challenge for her research relating to the early diagnosis of prostate and lung cancer.
It's amazing. You feel, okay, wow, so hard work does pay off. So it's amazing.
NDSU Associate Professor Dr. Danling Wang runs the lab that Mehek works in and says she is optimistic for Mehek's future.
After she graduates, she can be continually growing on this path and be a successful educator and the research.
With photographer Katie Bartnick, Drew Berg, Campus News.
Sadiq hopes to grow her technology into the fields of cardiovascular and brain illnesses, while also continuing her passion for teaching. Valley City State University is gearing up for another year to help transform the lives of Native American students. It's called InSTEM, short for Indians into Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. The program is free to all Native American students across North Dakota between grades 7 through 12. InSTEM students stay on campus for 4 days, staying in the dorms to learn and study on a college campus. Last year, the program hosted 54 students over 3 weeks.
A former NDSU English professor got her third shot at the Daily Double. Holly Hassel, who now teaches at Michigan Technical College, was back on the show Jeopardy! This month. This time, she competed for a championship wildcard semifinal spot, looking to advance to the Tournament of Champions. Hassel says that after moving to Michigan, she decided to write songs to help her prepare for the more difficult categories. She got 14 answers right for $8,800 in the first 2 rounds. She finished in second place after all 3 contestants guessed incorrectly during Final Jeopardy! The oldest black student newspaper in the U.S. just joined the Century Club. The Hilltop from Howard University made its debut 100 years ago.
Although there have been some bumps in the road, staffers say they still believe the future looks bright. Michelle Marsh reports.
Going through the Hilltop's archives is a trip back in time. Stories told through the lens of student journalists on the front lines of history.
As long as students have been protesting, the Hilltop has been there to cover it.
Editor-in-chief Jasper Smith is a senior journalism major.
We want to make sure that we are representing our motto, which is being the student voice of Howard University, whether it's holding administration accountable or documenting the lives and experiences of Howard students.
Thank you everybody for coming in tonight.
7 News was on campus for the Hilltop's weekly editorial meeting. They're continuing a rich legacy of impactful local reporting that's been carried on for decades, beginning in 1924, when the monthly paper was co-founded by former Howard students Zora Neale Hurston and Eugene King.
We have a saying, for Zora. We're telling the stories that we're telling for Zora and for her mission, as well as Eugene King, and for what they stood for.
Junior history major and campus editor J.D. Jean-Jacques says that mission was laid out in the Hilltop's first issue on January 22, 1924.
The first story ever written was about registration problems on campus. And that was something that they wrote because they felt they needed to advocate on behalf of students.
Was there ever a point where the Hilltop was in jeopardy?
In the mid-'80s, the Hilltop did have some internal conflict. And at one point, the editor-in-chief had fired all of her staff except one editor.
The now weekly online publication evolving with time and technology, proving its staying power.
The whole organization knows that this is a professional news publication. This is not a club. We're training ourselves to be reporters, to be journalists, to be people who are intellectually curious about our surroundings.
Where do you see the Hilltop going? What is on the horizon?
Hopefully in 10 years from now, we'll have, doubled our audience.
We really have the opportunity to become a daily news publication. I think some of the collegiate newspapers that we read, that we look at, are doing exactly that. And we believe that we have just as much talent as they do.
The Hilltop also has a podcast where their stories are shared. And now we turn it over to Josh Boyko for a look at this week's sports.
And Josh, I hear one MSUM team has their sights set pretty high this season.
That's right, Alex. The MSUM softball team is back in action for the spring season. After a disappointing preseason ranking, they're ready to hit the field with a new determination. Reporter Caitlin Zeiger tells us how they're making a comeback this season.
The Dragon softball team has started their spring season with a hit. Before their games even started, they were ranked number 6 for the NSIC preseason polls.
I think it's kind of a stab in our back because last year we finished 4th, so I think we're better than a few of the teams, at least we think so. It's a thing from the past that all those top teams still think that they're better than us, and we're definitely better than last year.
Having a lower rank than they thought, the team is striving to finish higher than number 6 and higher than last year's rank of number 4.
So my freshman year when we came in, we had a lot of improvement to doing, but I think that we could be better than 6th.
Elijah Johnson, a senior for the Dragons, also said the team is running to get their names in the history books for MSUM softball.
I know we have a team goal to beat the school record here for season wins, which is, I believe, 36. And last year we were at 30, so we definitely can do that. And again, we have some more players coming in that will bring in a lot of depth and be able to get that 36.
The team says it has the tools for success and has already proven that they are not a team to look down on. In the first tournament of the season, the Dragons went undefeated, winning all 4 games.
Playing as a team, we definitely need to trust each other and allow each other to make some mistakes, but pick each other up when we do make mistakes and not let it bring us down.
With 45 more games scheduled, the team has a long way to go till the NSIC tournament and will now be taking each game one pitch at a time. With photographer Jalen Wagner, Caitlin Zeiger, Campus News Sports.
The Dragons are currently in Tucson, Arizona for 3 more games this weekend. A former Minnesota Gopher hockey standout netted himself an award. Less than a year after being called up from the Gophers for a playoff push, Minnesota Wild defenseman and Maple Grove native Brock Faber earned Rookie of the Month honors for January. The 2-time Big Ten Defenseman of the Year tallied 11 assists in his 13-point month. The 21-year-old 6-game point streak was the longest by a defenseman in team history. With first-line defenseman and team captain Jared Spurgeon out for the season, Faber has stepped up, leading NHL rookies in minutes played and blocked shots. Faber is one of the favorites for the NHL's Rookie of the Year. The MSU Moorhead indoor track team is off to a great start this season, with personal bests and event wins. Reporter Jacob Anderson takes us through the success the team had at the Concordia Cobber Open.
The MSUM indoor track season is back in action.
It's always, exciting to come back off a break and see where everybody's fitness is.
The Dragons competed at the Cobber Open at Concordia and saw several personal bests and event winners.
That was a good day. We kind of used that weekend as a bit of a training weekend for us.
An event that stood out the most at the Cobber Open was the men's 1,000-meter run, placing 6 Moorhead runners in the top 7.
It was good to see the guys kind of, get a good run in and get a positive result.
It's amazing to be able to run with 5-6 other guys.
Even though the race finished with several red uniforms in front, the men's distance team is still working hard and pushing each other to do better every day.
We use each other to run faster, but we don't really compete against each other.
I tried to push the distance a little bit, push the tempo a little bit.
Coach Milner says the morale of the distance team is the same as always when they compete throughout the season.
They're just excited to be here, consistently do the work they should to improve. That's one of the things that I think maybe sets us apart from other programs.
Milner also says everyone on the team has the same mindset and makes it optimal for achieving. With photographer Isabella Turnus, Jacob Anderson, Campus News Sports.
The Dragons have their final tune-up next Saturday at UND before the NSIC Indoor Championships on February 23rd. A historic ruling in college sports identifies players in a new way. Student athletes can now become student employees. The National Labor Relations Board ruled the Dartmouth men's basketball team is able to vote and form the first NCAA Athletes Union. Dartmouth would need a majority vote of the 15-man roster to form the union. The New Hampshire private school doesn't give out scholarships, but players would now be able to bargain for salary, working conditions, and practice times. Dartmouth competes out of the Ivy League with schools that, for the most part, don't make revenue from sports. Dartmouth will appeal the ruling. The MSU Moorhead men's basketball team is having a record-breaking year. Reporter Caitlin Zeiger talked with the team about their quick start to the season.
The Dragons opened up their season by achieving something only 2 other Dragon programs have done in school history, ranking #1 in the country.
It's really cool to be a part of something that can go down in history as a historic start for us here.
Senior forward Dane Zimmer and the Dragons rattled off 15 straight wins, peaking as the #1 team in D2 basketball along the way.
The level of talent that's in this league, and then just the coaches that are in this league, it's basically Division I basketball. I just keep trying to preach that to anybody that doesn't know.
Last year, head coach Tim Bergstrasser led the team to an NSIC championship in his first year. This year, they have their sights set even higher after a great start.
We don't really focus on the overall, we just kind of focus on one win at a time. So having that stack up consecutively to 15 straight wins was really cool to have.
Sophomore forward Logan Kinsey credits the team's veteran players and coaches as the catalyst for the team's success.
The leaders help guide us through what we need to do so they keep us on track, keep us focused, keep us motivated. I think everybody was going to lean on Jacob just for leadership because they trust him just with his voice. And then, Dane Zimmer, everybody's assumed that he'd be a captain too, and he's been there and done that. He's a quiet guy, but he's one of those leaders that he's always going to show up. He's going to lead by action.
With 7 more conference games remaining, the Dragons are taking things one at a time till the NSIC tournament. With photographer Jalen Wagner, Caitlin Zeiger, Campus News.
The Dragons play the University of Mary at 5:30 this evening. Back-to-back NSIC championships and hunting for more.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be a great season. Thanks, Josh. After 25 years, a painting professor at MSUM is still making a major impact on all of his students.
Reporter Coleman Rader shows us how he's inspiring everyone to fulfill their artistic potential.
To get too much color, because when you're getting too much color, you're kind of start to be confusing.
So now we are just making same color almost, really blocking everything.
For some people, painting is just a hobby, but for Zeman Guan at MSU Moorhead, it's about the impact he makes on his students.
I ask some difficult questions, and I also train my students to do the same. Like if they want to make a good painting, they have to consider what they want and what they want to communicate.
The demos that he paints for his students can take up to an hour to finish, and his personal work can take many hours, days, and sometimes even weeks until his painting is finally complete.
Good painting should have a really good foundation of rendering, like creating form, creating either human form or landscape form, or plants, whatever form, when artists have to have that ability to do it, and also creating atmosphere that the work can be inspiring the audience, as far as trigger their imaginations.
Walking around his studio, he displayed many of his own paintings. He also had a display of his favorite students' work in the hallway leading into his studio office. One of his students, Elizabeth Eggle, says that Zeman leads her on the path of becoming a better artist.
He really does work hard to give good critiques to his students and make sure that they're going in the right direction.
Even though they have different mindsets while painting, Zeman Guan's demos are still very valuable to his students.
He has a very different perspective on painting than I do, which I think is very informative and allows for a bit more experimentation within my own work.
Flower can be so exciting. When you see engaging that, veins and colors and so I feel it's really worthwhile to be a professor. It's really fun to engaging these people and teach them and become friends.
With photographer Hunter Schwartz, Pullman Raider, Campus News.
Professor Guan has received over 20 awards throughout the U.S. and abroad. And that's it for this edition of Campus News.
We leave you with a performance from MSUM alum Darian Clark.
Thanks for joining us and have a great week.
I can't give everything. Feeling less, saying no, but meaning yes. That is all I ever meant. That's the letter that I sent. I can't give everything.
Campus News is produced by the Television News Workshop in the School of Communication and Journalism at Minnesota State University Moorhead, in cooperation with Prairie Public Television.